Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. We're pleased to be joined again by Georgia U.S. Representative Jack Kingston. The Republican has served Georgia's 1st District for the past 16 years and is currently in his 9th term. In 2005, the National Journal rated him the most conservative member of the House. He's also been called a taxpayer's hero and has received the Watchdog of the Treasury Award. Welcome back to Newsmax, Representative.
Thank you, Ashley. It's great to be with you.
Good to have you. In late February, the Air Force yanked its invitation of Family Research Council President Tony Perkins to speak at a prayer luncheon at Andrews Air Force Base. This happened after Perkins, a former Marine officer and conservative leader and minister, criticized President Obama's efforts to end the military's don't ask, don't tell policy on homosexuality. Now, you co-wrote a letter with Democrat Dan Boren of Oklahoma to Defense Secretary Robert Gates and Joint Chiefs Chairman Admiral Michael Mullen. It had a whole lot of co-signers. What was the gist of the letter, Congressman, and did you receive any response to it?
Well, Ashley, we have received a response. We had 106 members of Congress sign the letter, and what our concern is that if the Air Force was going to say that Dr. Perkins' views on don't ask, don't tell were politically incorrect or out of sync with the President's policies, and they rescind his invitation, isn't that really religious censorship? And it's not about Tony Perkins, it's about the members of the service in a time of war and in a time of 2 wars not having access to the religion of their preference, which is something that's been a long-standing tradition and practice in the U.S. military. So when you say, okay, this guy, we don't like his views, we're going to rescind that invitation, that sends a huge signal downstream to every single Army chaplain, or Navy, or Marine Corps, or anyone else. So we're very concerned about that.
What was the response, Congressman?
Well, what we got was a response from the Air Force that said, you know, we had some complaints about his positions as he had posted them on his own website, and members started to complain, and so we called him and decided that it was best not to invite him. We are going to re-invite him in the future, but you know, it's kind of the response that I expected. The second part about this that we had asked them is, if you repeal don't ask, don't tell, saying that open homosexuals can serve in the military, what do you do about spousal benefits? Because certainly, you know, when the Taliban's coming over the hill charging you in the foxhole, you don't care if the person next to you is homosexual or not. That's irrelevant. The question really is, well, what do you do to the military benefit policy? You're going to have to cover his spouse. So if he's wearing a uniform, you're going to cover his husband. And how do you do that without repealing DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act? DOMA is the nickname for it. And so if you're going to give spousal benefits, you have to face, well, what are you going to do about the Defense of Marriage Act, which is the law of the land in the United States of America? And that question was dodged in his response in this letter.
Representative, do you see a pattern of the Obama White House trying to silence opponents?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. You're seeing it right now with Henry Waxman, the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, auditing the records of groups from Farm Bureau to AT&T and some of the larger corporations who have openly opposed either cap and trade policies or health care policies of this administration. The administration not interviewing with certain conservative news networks, and there's no question about it that they have an enemies list and they work it and they reward and punish accordingly.
All right, turning to another subject, the health care reform law. You're a member of the House Appropriations Committee. Now, some say Republicans can still stop it if they regain control of the House by refusing to fund it. Would it be possible to do that?
Absolutely, and I think that has to be really our #1 objective when we come back, is to repeal and replace this health care policy. I believe we could say we're not going to fund the 16,000 new IRS agents or the 160 new bureaucracies that are set up, but what we will do is allow consumers to purchase health care across state lines. We will have malpractice reform. We will allow small businesses to form association groups, and we'll level the tax code so that individuals can get the same tax credits that corporations have when they buy health care. If we do this all in one step on a comprehensive basis, I think that we're going to see not only better health care, but more job creation, because it will lift this burden off of small businesses.
One of Obama's economic advisors, Paul Volcker, is floating the idea of a national sales tax called a value-added tax to deal with a burgeoning deficit. Now, syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer says flat out, it's coming. In your view, is it?
I think it is, because if you think about it, in 2009, the Obama deficit was higher than the 12 previous years of deficits. A $1.4 trillion deficit in 1 year. Another similar size deficit is projected for 2010 and 2011. So they're going to have to come up with some revenues. And the value-added tax, which they have in Europe, which cripples their economies and has turned the European economic engine into mediocrity, you know, the Obama administration is obsessed with them anyhow. So they would be very open to having a value-added tax. And I think what we need to do is force their hand somehow on the floor through a procedure to make them vote up and down. And I think they'd have a hard time, particularly in an election year, getting the House to go along with it. Even given the number of liberals in the House floor, I think it'd be enormously unpopular.
Fed Chairman Bernanke says Congress needs a long-term plan to balance the budget. Where would you begin?
Well, I think for one thing that we have to get rid of the duplications in spending. There's so many, there's something like 60 different federal jobs programs. We need to go after the duplication. Second thing is you have to go after entitlement. 57% of the vote is Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, veterans programs. And these are programs that a lot of people benefit from, but there are others who may be abusing it or pushing the envelope. There's a lot of fraud and abuse in it. We need to go after that. And then I think we just have to look at every single program. For every dollar that we spend, we're borrowing 37 cents right now. It is absolutely unsustainable.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says Obama is bulldozing Republicans on financial regulatory legislation. We know the stimulus has not created the new jobs it was supposed to. The country's in deeper debt by the multiple trillions now. What are House Republicans doing to try to stop the bleeding?
Well, I think what we want to do on financial services is not codify too big to fail, because basically what the federal government was going to do, what the Barney Frank, Chris Dodd model of financial reform is to say that the big guys will never fail, and then turning around and we would expect the community banks to compete against them. Community banks are the lifeline of jobs in small towns all over America and small businesses. 70% of the jobs come from small businesses. You can't continuously cater to Wall Street and do this wink-wink of big finances and big government really hating each other when in fact they're cutting deals with each other at the expense of the community banks, which in turn kills jobs around the country. So I think one of the things Republicans have to do is move away from this bill and try to ease credit in the private sector through the community banks. And we would support more transparency at Wall Street, more accountability. Everybody's for that, but we do not like the too big to fail doctrine.
Are you optimistic that as of January 2011, you'll be in the majority with the power to stop this reckless spending?
I'm cautiously optimistic. The president's approval ratings are under 50% right now, and traditionally from March of an election year until the election, a president's approval ratings do not go up. And when a president's approval ratings are under 50%, as Obama's are, the party out of power picks up an average of 41 seats. We need 40 to regain the majority, so I think that the wind is in the right direction. Unfortunately, the Democrat Party, which is financed by labor unions and trial lawyers and Hollywood and some of the huge donors, the very wealthy sectors of our society, they have a lot more money than we do. So we've got to encourage the grassroots type activisms that we're seeing with the Tea Party and other outraged citizens around the country.
And finally, oil tycoon T. Boone Pickens wants the House to pass legislation expanding the use of natural gas-powered vehicles to reduce oil imports. What do you think of that idea?
Well, you know what? I think it should be on the table. I support, along with the Republican Party, and all of the above energy policy. First of all, we need to commit to energy independence because it's a national security issue. It's not just an economic issue when you pull into the gas station. But we do need to drill for our own oil offshore and in Alaska. We need to look at solar. We need to look at wind power. We need to look at natural gas. We need to look at nuclear energy. We have it all at our fingertips to become energy independence. We just don't have that commitment.
Georgia U.S. Representative Jack Kingston, as always, thanks so much for talking with us here.
Thank you, Ashley.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.